Thank you very much for the introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all today, and we are really excited for the product session you've got coming up. So 3 speakers, 3 main sections. Do you want to tell us more about it?
For sure, yes. So first of all, you can say we will have 3 streams today. So if you take the next slide. Yes, so this is about empowering the future of generative AI. This is us. And starting out with generative AI. So Gen AI is a little bit like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But you can say that the unpredictability of Gen AI is both a strength, but also a weakness. And I think it sort of like moves the focus a little bit away from designing the dialogue flows into basically focusing on the data quality, so the ingest of the data, but also it focuses on the ability to do testing, right? So test, and then monitor in production as well. So there's a little bit of a, the kind of focus areas are kind of switching. And basically, when you look at it from Boost perspective, then we will make sure that the chocolate you're gonna get is the right one, with the right flavors and probably the right topping as well. So you can say from a generative action perspective, we will be focusing on hyper-personalization and also on fully controllable features, as well as trust and security. And for that session, we will bring up on stage Andrew from Bolt, coming all the way from Colombia, as well as the entire team coming from Aldeamo and other places. So we'll hear from them later. And then for the voice session, we'll have our CX champions, Luciana and Colby, coming up on stage. Next one. Basically, they come all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, to tell us about their fantastic stories as well. Finally, for the voice, you can say the focus from our side is around ensuring a smooth flow and a good flow around and ensuring low latency for the voice. And basically, you can say it's all about having a convincing way and a way of configuring the dialogue flow and a way of configuring the voice automation. And finally, on the integrations, our plan is to integrate and are integrating to a lot of different solutions and systems for voice integration. And finally, for the agent assist, we have our CX champion, Mathilde, coming from Almindelig Brandbank, a group, coming all the way from Denmark. Basically, the summarization for the agent assist is around providing some summaries for the agents, as well as having the right control flows for us, ensuring certain processes such as KYC, and also providing what we call automatic conversation reviews, which is basically a way to sort of interact with the conversation after it's been done and extract certain information from that. And then finally, we will also look at the metrics that we're able to extract from these conversations. So I'm looking very much forward to hearing about all of that.
Okay.
So now it's up to Oreo time.
Over to me, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Rasmus.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'll get the clicking right, since these are my own slides. Let's pop through. So, what if your bank could change your life? For years, we've been striving with conversational AI to be more human-like. But with the advent of generative AI, we can start to imagine, what could a more than human experience be? So let's say I receive a proactive message from my bank. This is personalized to me. It's safe in the authenticated space. It's based on my own spending habits. How could I scale that in a way that would be safe and secure and effective, but also take into account all the different unique requirements we each have as individuals? So let's look at a few examples. Here we have Nicole. She's missed her payments once or twice because she's a little forgetful. So, in the first instance, keeping you in suspense, we perfectly understand her intent. We help her to set up a reminder. But that's not really using the power of what we have available to us. We have information on her data. So we can look at logic, and we can look to see that she did actually have the right amount of funds at the end of the month. And therefore, a next best action specific for Nicole might be to set up a direct debit. So that's why we've offered that here. And when she chooses to do that, we can complete that journey within the one conversation. We can take it a step further. Again, we have access to her accounts, so why not review what she has with us today? Why not review if she's using those as well as she can? In this instance, she's still got some perks that she's not taking the best advantage of. And it really matters, because if we can increase customer loyalty or retention by just a small percent, it has a considerable impact on business profitability. So let's look at a second example. We've just met Nicole, now we have Stian. Stian here has also missed a few payments, but his scenario is slightly different. So he's struggling with debt management. Notice how different his first response is to Nicole's. It's empathetic. Now we're going to go on to find the right solution for Stian. And you'll see we've suggested a different card, and this is the important thing. We haven't just gone into integrations, into the CRM, into the core banking systems, into the knowledge base, and pulled out all the examples of things that could be available. We're marrying that information with what we have about Stian. We know his spending habits. We have access to that information. So we're only going to surface examples that are relevant to him. And if you look at the second message that we sent, that's the why. Why does this matter to Stian? This is what it's going to mean to him personally, 500 kroner saving every month. So that's what we mean by being hyper-personalized. So let's say Stian does something pretty human. It's something I do a lot. He interrupts the bot. He changed the topic. He asks about his mortgage rate. So what we actually did there was we completely switched the topic. And actually, we took Stian out of a generative flow into a conversational flow. But you'll notice it didn't topple the bot. It was okay. We were able to continue the conversation. And in fact, sometime later, we could come back to the conversation about credit cards. So the idea here is that we are able to continue the conversation, dip in and out of a generative or a conversational flow, as and when it suits the customer. But we also saw deep integrations. Oh, did it move forward? There we go. So here we had completely different first messages. Even though both of them defaulted on payments, they had different reasons for that. And that's what we catered to here. We used deep integrations into CRMs, into core banking systems, and we were able to pull out the next best action that was specific to both Stian and Nicole. So this is a phenomenal experience that would have taken hundreds and thousands of if statements to achieve. And with generative action, what we effectively do is we collapse that all down into one. So that's one prompt that allows us to personalize for hundreds and thousands of conversations. So the question remains, how do we do this? How do we do this in a way that is safe and secure? And Jerry mentioned this earlier on stage. We are the only company in the market today who is approaching this from a safety-first perspective. In fact, it's fundamental to the way that we've architected our platform. Each and every component is secure by design. So we spoke about the trust layer earlier. We heard about the ISO certification. You can trust. We've been there. We've done that before. We're actually setting the standard for what it means to be compliant and safe in this space. And then we also can trust that our customers are going to be understood. We're going to understand their intent. Coming at you. So Boost trains our models on thousands of intents rather than hundreds, and that's because we scale to thousands of intents. And that matters because it means we have an exceptional accuracy, and then we can guide the customers to the right flow. And it doesn't matter if that's conversational or generative, it's about understanding them and getting them to the right place. And that level of detail is what we take into our approach to generative. So having that level of minutiae is what we call our topic level. And many of you in the room will have heard of prompt engineering. It's a big buzzword at the moment, but it's essentially how we tell the bot what to do. And this is what you might see out there. It's one big knowledge base with all your information in one space and a fairly generic response. So how to get data. And we can do that, but we don't like to take that approach for a number of reasons. Firstly, we can't be very specific about how you want the bot to react. And the other thing is, if you have all your information in one place, there's far more chance of hallucination. So again, we're not just telling you how to find the data. Here at Boost, we're at the topic level, which tells you what to do once you retrieve that data. And that's the fundamental difference. If you look at the prompt that we have here, it's far more specific. It's what to do if certain scenarios come up. It's a certain type of behavior. It's a certain type of persona. This is how we want our bot to act with the information that they have. So it's a fundamental difference. And that also matters when we switch in and out of that conversational to generative flow. For us, we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the customer at the right time. And that might also mean the right thing for you as a brand. There might be different use cases that you want to be conversational, and some that you don't mind trying with generative or moving into generative. And you'll see that in a moment. We have a customer who can explain that a little bit more. So it doesn't really matter whether you switch from one to the other, but we can do that really easily, like we saw with Stian. Then the third component here is around guardrails. And I mentioned hallucinations earlier. And there's definitely questions around how we can do anything with generative that's going to be safe and secure. Now, in a typical example on the market today, you would put all the rules for how you want your bot to react or not to react into your prompt. It looks something like this. The problem with that is that it's hackable. Yeah, everyone's seen the $1 Chevy examples. You've seen DPD. So we've got a solution to that. In fact, we're the first to market with the idea of guardrails. And guardrails are kind of like one big LLM listening in to make sure that we're not doing anything wrong. And they can be holistic across the entire account, or they can be at the topic level. So we can say, only react like this. You're a customer service rep, don't do this. But specifically, when we get to the topics about credit cards, here are some extra rules for how you are allowed to behave and not. It's a little bit like a safety net to make sure that nothing falls through. So finally, after all of these components, we want to be able to see how well we're performing. We want to know where and how these decisions have been made. So we have auditability, visibility, and traceability right down to the flow level. So where we are making decisions with the LLM, we can see that happening. We can see how that decision was made, and for each person and why, and we can report on it. Yes. It matters because usually this sort of thing is a black box. And having access to this information is what allows you to make key decisions, to decide where to have conversational, to decide where to have your generative, and ultimately, ooh.
Half a page.
Has that been here the whole time? We're halfway there.
Halfway there.
Living on a prayer.
No.
All right. So this is really what we have to bring in terms of our safety and security. So we have the opportunity here to just take a step back and look at what we've seen. This is fundamentally a safe place to be able to build generative. And it's about having your entire CRM at your fingertips at one time, which is more than human. And then having access to all of your banking systems, to all your products, that's more than even your most tenured agent knows. And we have those two components, and then we add the prompt engineering. And the prompt engineering comes from many of you in the room here today. And that's the best practice for what to do once we have that information, how to use that, how best to service our customers, what good looks like. That's what we're prompting and teaching our bots. So that's what it means to have a more than human-like experience. And we're very excited to be here today. So I know we're going to be talking a little bit more about that now, but what's holding you back? You're one prompt away. The future is now, Rasmus. Speaking of the future, sure. I'd like to invite up Lars. You're going to come join us here and talk a little bit more about the security of what we've just seen and really how we apply this into our everyday.
Thank you. Hello, Lars. All right. So I think the first part here is kind of focusing on how this was designed. And you can say, I think it's one of the first areas, maybe, let's sit down here, is that the focus areas really for how this was designed and architected, I think, is based on, first of all, making a really, really nice user experience around creating the guardrails and also interacting, having the guardrails to interact with the conversations. So really having a nice user experience and a user-friendly way of interacting and building these control flows. And then the controls themselves, obviously leading into a improved trust. So once you start trusting this, then it means you can scale it and put it into production. So really, sort of that journey is what we've been working with, and ensuring that we get to the stage where you can get it into production, because that's ultimately where it gives you value and your customers as well. So Lars, can you give us some comments about how this was architected?
Yeah, so I think the key thing to think here is that the whole architecture is made for trust and control. It's not just kind of individual components added. And I kind of like to view it as a funnel where you say that if you just take one of these components, of course, it helps, but just a little bit. But when the message goes through the full funnel, that's when you get really secure. So we start off at the topic level where we say, you're now only talking about one topic. And you can decide if you want to deal with that in a generative or in a controlled way. But if you go generative, then if you talk about cards, you only have the card info available, and you don't risk pollution of kind of info from other areas. So already you're very much more safe. But that also allows you to have a topic level instructions. And we see that the amount of hallucinations drop significantly when the instructions are very specific. The interesting part is this is not only helping you kind of reduce the chance of errors and getting the trust, but it also gives you the ability to control, where you can tell the bot, well, this is how I want you to behave to my customers around credit cards. You can say, only recommend the gold card in these conditions and so on. And it allows you to still, as an AI trainer, go in and control what's happening, which I think is really important. Because we've seen over the years in all of our projects, the key of our customers and AI trainers just easily controlling what's happening is critical to the project success. Next, we have the hallucination detector to check, is the bot talking about the information that's given? Then you have your kind of enterprise, your guardrails that you might deploy throughout the whole solution that you want everywhere. But you might also have some topic level guardrails. Let's say you want the bot to explain which funds you have available as a bank. Then you might want the guardrail specifically designed to detect if the bot is going into financial advice, because that is not allowed in many cases. And there's a very fine line, and then you can explain exactly what you mean is a difference between giving financial advice and just giving information about the funds available. So I think that's very interesting. And then the last part here I think is really cool, because we don't just take the user into a generative flow, but we also allow you to define when do you want to tell the generative part to give it over to the control part again. So you might, for example, say when you actually want to block the card, you want a controlled conversation, and you might even want a button where you say, I will only actually block a card when the user clicks on that button. So I think this mixture of controlled and generative together is extremely critical to make this perform well. I don't know, Rasmus, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I think first of all, I regarding hallucination detection, the way that I see it is sort of like that it compares the knowledge that you've uploaded, right? So you have documents, you have videos, you have images, you have a lot of unstructured data, right? So you're taking that unstructured data and then you're comparing it to the generated output. And then you're saying, well, are there any differences between those two data sets? And if there are, well, then there's a high chance of hallucination. So that's really how the hallucination works. And if you think about it as a human, it's also the same way that we do hallucination detection internally, right? If somebody tells you a lie, well, then, you compare that with the knowledge you have in your head and you say, well, there's something that doesn't really compute here, right? So that's exactly the same thing that happens here for hallucination detection. And I think another point around the topic guardrails specifically is that the topic guardrails are sort of see it as a sort of an auditor or a person looking over your shoulder. So it's basically overviewing or it's overseeing the conversation as it unfolds. And then if it sees something which is which has been instructed to specifically detect, well, then it sort of blocks the flow and then brings it into a normal conversation flow again. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to add to that. So Lars, can you tell us a little bit more about what happens after you put this into production?
Yeah, I think if you go to the next slides. So I think a key thing here is, in the middle, you kind of have the pipe of what a incoming message goes through. But then around here, you have everything you need to manage this. You're going to need to, make sure the data is valid. You can anonymize stuff. We can even anonymize stuff before we send to the LLM. So you might say, certain info I want to make sure it's never sent to anything external. It needs to be extremely user-friendly. And I think you can't really have high trust and control with something that's not user-friendly. Because you need to be easily be able to adjust it and make it work how you want. You need to be easily be able to correct stuff and so on. So I think the user-friendly part here is one of the key aspects, and it's always been a core for Boost that you can take someone from customer support and they can work with our technology. You need the transparency. You need to be able to see what's happening, analyze, why did things go the way they went? And that's critical for you to keep on improving. We have the kind of A/B testing available, so if you want to just test it for some portion of the traffic, I think this is going to be very nice for a lot of existing customers, where you might want to say, I want to test the generative against the controlled flow before I decide if I want to go full generative or not. So you can turn it on gradually. You don't have to go generative or not. We have the audit logs, so you can check out what's been changed, who's done what. I think that's very important. And we're also now building, in the next version, automatic conversation review, where the AI will review the conversations and give you stats and feedback on how well you are performing completely automatically. So I think with this whole system around, this really, everything comes together and allows you to build great experiences for your end users.
Great stuff. All right, but thank you very much, Lars. And I think next up is going to be a talk with Bold.
Right.
Yeah.
Andrea from Bold, can you join us
Thank you very
on
much,
stage?
Lars. Yeah.
Thank you, Lars. I'll sit here with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll sit here together.
All right.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Andrea,
fine?
welcome. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you here.
I'm Andrew. I'm a customer experience manager for Bolt. I'm Brazilian, but I'm living in Colombia for around 7 years now. And in terms of experience, I've been working with customer support for 8 years, and the past 3 working for Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
So my role is not just ensure to design really good processes, but also making sure that we are not the typical call center where the agents just lose the critical thinking. So that's why we were raising our CSAT so fast in less than 15 months, and we are looking to have more with Boost.
Yeah, it's great to have you on stage, and we're excited to tell the story. But first of all, we've asked everyone in this next section to tell us an interesting fact about themselves. So do you want to share with the room your interesting fact?
Yeah. Well, as a Brazilian, you might think that I'm a big fan of football, but I'm actually not. I think there is a story behind that, and is that I never played well. So when you are the last one to be chosen to play football, so you kind of lose motivation to do that. So that's why.
And do you have a favorite sport instead?
I like to watch NFL, American football, kind of funny, the opposite, and cycling. I do love cycling a lot.
Well, you're in the right place for that. There's mountains here. You can enjoy them the more of your trip.
Sure.
All right, well, let's find out a little bit more about you and about Bold. So can you tell us more about the company?
Well, Bold, it's a payments company. Was created before the COVID, but when we were ready to launch, so the lockdown came in. But our first successful transaction was made during April 2020 in the lockdown. We started as a payment company offering credit card readers, like the credit card machines, as a Square in the United States. And our main goal was to simplify the life of small and medium business sizes. So in Colombia, for example, you can go and buy avocado on the street using our credit card machine. So before us, it wasn't possible. So we just simplified the amount of time that a merchant needs to comply to have a credit card machine. But now, 5 years later, we are dedicated to be the tech and banking partner. So we are launching our bank account next month. Actually, I have the debit card here. And we are very excited for that.
Okay, great stuff. So what kind of challenges did you face, or are you facing in Bolt then?
Well, since the beginning, we were, like our main goal at support was to build processes and be like the customer advocate, like being, representing the users and raising the statistics so the tech team could help us to build tech solutions. But there is a moment where you start like having a lot of different key points to work on. And we were seeing that the general questions were impacting highly on our performance, not just on the time to manage, but also in volume. So we didn't want to have an army of agents in customer support. So that's why we started looking to a partner that could help us managing chatbot, because our WhatsApp channel has like 80% of the volume. So at that time, we were working a lot to manage the volume.
And talking about partners, your partner is here in the room with us. We have Aldiamo. Can you explain who they are?
Yes, Aldiamo, it's a partner from Bolt, not just on Boost. We were working with them before in messaging tools. And then when we were searching for this type of product, they came in and said, hey, we have the solution for your issues. So just give us a shot and we can help you. Definitely was a really good experience because they still working with us even after the integration, and they keep providing solutions and suggestions to improve the performance. So it's a really good partner.
Right, it's great to have you here. So I wanted to ask a question about something on the slides here. There's 10 simultaneous chats per agent. So I started my career in the call center and I took chats, and I was considered a super user when I used to take 5 chats at a time.
Yeah.
So 10 chats, what's the impact on that?
Yeah, I can tell that we have really good agents, very multitasking.
Super agents.
But sometimes you are like taking the risk of providing some wrong information, make someone else waiting when you are replying another user. So it takes like a little bit of our customer experience out, and we didn't want that, and it was increasing actually. So that's why we wanted to find a technology that could help us to reduce that.
Great, thank you.
Great. So you also had some sort of a hackathon, is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Well, when we started working and talking with Boost, we thought that we were able to create something like this. We were actually wrong, but the hackathon went well because we were able to build an intelligent chatbot. But then the conclusion at the end was, okay, we can do that, but we need to switch the core of the business and use the entire engineer team from Bolt. So based on that, we took the decision to move back and go to Boost and say, hey, we need your help. So it was a really good experience, but we came up with that conclusion.
Yeah, you're not the first customer to try that and told us the same answer. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about the process?
Was really good. Actually, we did a proof of concept. It was around 6 weeks. We were able to understand the platform, to see the potential, to see it working. For us, at that time, everyone was selling ChatGPT plugins to the platform, but we were more interested on how can we understand what the user is saying, because in Colombia, we talk Spanish, and then there's a bunch of different ways to tell the same word. So we were kind of looking for a tool that could help us understanding the users first and then working on the response right after. So this was the proof of concept process, and then we went to the integration was the second important part of the process, and that we already had a CRM that we were working with all of the channels, so we didn't want to change, but Boost was really good on the process and helped us with the integration. So it was built from the scratch, and we actually have to say thank you guys because it wasn't easy.
Great.
But actually, on that, you were a startup, you are growing up. We're in a phase there, and you said to me that it took a really long time to set this up from your perspective.
Yeah.
But would you mind sharing with the rest of the room what that really long time was?
With the proof of concept, like 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah. So I think it was 6 weeks to set up and 6 weeks to integrate.
Yeah.
So that was the really long time to get the whole thing.
As customers, we want everything just right away.
Which is why we have a great rate of
Yeah.
change with you, which is why you're going to tell us in a little bit about what you've been doing.
Exactly. Yeah, so I understand you've been thinking with generative action, so I just wanted to, if you can talk us through the demo as well on that.
Yeah, I just received 2 weeks ago the feature, and I started digging and trying to find the best way to use. I can tell that doesn't work for everything. You cannot use 100% generative AI. You kind of need to find a hybrid path. But I can tell I'm not on the daily basis of the VA, so kind of just watching the team. But I was able to take the training and build the VA in just 2 days. And 1 day was just losing time trying to find the correct topic. So it was pretty easy, and I can tell that we saved a lot of time building the responses. And it's easy. You can just set up the rules, the guardrails, and upload a knowledge base. And the knowledge base was like a terms and conditions. So we had a conquest happening at the company for our users. So we were giving up some prices. And the use case was just uploading the terms and conditions that are very legal specific, but I set up the VA to respond as empathetic and friendly as possible, and the responses were just amazing, just amazing. And actually getting the feeling of the users and responding accordingly, so it was really good.
And we're going to see that in a moment. But before we do, just going back to these challenges here, what was the outcome? What did we see from actually going live?
Well, these results are from day one. So as soon as we turn on Boost, the simultaneous chat per agent just dropped to 3. The WhatsApp automation rate went to 60%, and the first response time to 68 seconds. We were actually responding at the first time within 10 minutes, so it was pretty high. So that's what Boost were helping us, like just keeping the volume and solving the general questions that were pretty basic and leaving the second level to the agents.
10 minutes to 60 seconds. Amazing.
Something.
All right, I think everyone would like to see what you've got to show us. Shall we move to the demo?
Let's do that.
Okay.
This is all. You can see the difference. Actually, you showed before, like you need to create an entire tree of actions, and it was pretty easy. It's just a prompt that I'm setting the rules for the VA and telling, hey, you need to be friendly, you need to respond with 40 words, and etc. And then the guardrails that are very important. And I can tell that I've tested a lot. I've thrown really bad words there to see if the VA was responding well, and it does really well and very empathetic. Actually, the first reaction that we had was sometimes more empathetic than one of my agents, for example. So it's really good. And here we are just asking general questions about the conquest, like how does it work, if I win, when I'm going to receive my prize. And the VA is just getting the information from the knowledge base and constructing the responses. So it's really good.
More empathetic than your agents.
Yeah.
Sometimes happens. Yeah, the other thing that I can point out that for me it's really important is keeping the context of the conversation. Because sometimes you can throw a different question and the VA will jump to another intent. So you can set up the amount of chats that the agent will be reviewing, and then he keeps the context and responds right away. So that's why we can see sometimes responses for things like, I didn't understand, but I didn't understand what. So this type of process helps a lot to keep the VA responding correctly and at the same context of the previous question.
Yeah, very, very, very powerful, because that really gives you that real experience, proper customer experience.
Sure.
All right, well, we have one more question for you. Well, at least I have one more question for you. Could you tell us more about what's happening in the future?
What's happening in the future? Well, we have just 5 months using Boost, so we are pretty new. We are focusing on general questions until now. But we just finished the authentication process for the users yesterday, and we are going to start implementing like really automation. The biggest one will be, and the first one, for collections. So we have a credit product, and we need to make collections work. And then we are like partnering with Aliamo actually to send a message through WhatsApp to the user and then trigger a specific intent and start using the responses to make this process. And well, the future is pretty wide. We can do basically whatever we want. We just need to study the best options and prioritize correctly.
Yeah, well, I know that we are very excited to see what you've done so far. And if this is what you've done in such a short time, by the end of this year, we're going to have a really, really compelling story to tell over and above what we've had today.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic.